This is Tony T here from Tony'sPicks.com with our college football pick show here for Saturday, September 13th. For more free pick videos, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Lots of free picks over our channel. Learn myself as well as our team of cappers here at Tony'sPicks.com. Make it a great channel to subscribe to. Give us a like and thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. It really helps develop our audience. We go live every day, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. It is the Tony Picks Morning Show. The cappers join me, give out live free picks, so check that out if you would. We are looking for cappers. You can apply. Send us an email. The whole form you'll see on the homepage. And then visit our site, Tony'sPicks.com. We're a multi-capper site showcasing top performers in our industry. Get the link. Click the links to the hot cappers. Get signed up to long-term passes. You see our top performers here like Sean Higgs, Mills. There's truly up there, Jorge, Chris Atkins, guys you know from our live shows, as well as our YouTube videos. Brian Bittler is up there as well. Justin, latest picks here, send the page with best bets and more. We'll be locked and loaded for this card here on Saturday. Remember, all of our one-day passes are profit guaranteed. They must turn a profit. Amount purchased will be credited back to your capper site credits. That's profit guarantee. And then our promo code TonyT at checkout will knock off that 15%. The link's in the description to get signed up. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's get this one underway. All right, we start with Memphis and Troy for Saturday. Memphis 2-0 after a 38-16 road win at Georgia State. You know, the Tigers had a balanced, efficient attack and victory. They averaged 5.1 yards per rush. They held the Panthers to 2 yards to carry, but allowed 340 yards passing on 41 attempts. Brendan Lewis, 16-20 passing for 196 yards. He rushed for 68 yards and a touchdown. Troy, they're 1-1 after a 27-16 road defeat at Clemson. The Trojans blew a 16-0 lead midway through the second quarter. Offensively, they contained the Tigers, but the ground game stalled on offense and mistakes were costly. Bruce Crowder, 19-31 passing for 223 yards with a touchdown but 3 picks. Troy's an improved team, but the dynamic Lewis will be tough to defend with his passing accuracy coupled with his effective running. The Tigers are running for 6 yards a carry and allowing just 2.7 yards per rush on defense. Lewis needs to stay healthy, something he couldn't do at Nevada. Troy 1-4 the spread at home in the non-conference. Pick here will be Memphis -4. All right, next up, we're going to get you Oklahoma and Temple there. Oklahoma making that trip to Temple in Philadelphia. Interesting road trip there. Of course, Venables under a lot of pressure to start getting some victories there. He's got the defense working, but the offense has got to come through for him to win some games. Let's get to it. We have a lot of games here, the noon Eastern time, so we're going to get to the graphic here and then get you the pick here in just a second. Here we go. Oklahoma and Temple for Saturday. We've got Oklahoma 2-0 after a 24-13 home victory against Michigan. The Sooners got really good quarterback play in the win and rush for 3.5 yards a carry. On defense, they were effective in pass defense. Washington State transfer John Mateer, 21-34 passing for 270 yards with a touchdown and pick and 7.9 yards per pass attempt. He rushed for 74 yards and 2 touchdowns. Temple, they're 2-0 after a 55-7 home victory against FCS Howard. They opened with a 42-10 road win at UMass. The Owls rushed for 191 yards and got good quarterback play. They limited the Minutemen to 5 yards per pass attempt, 103 yards rushing. Evan Simon, 19-25 passing for 248 yards and 6 touchdowns. Temple has played a really weak schedule. Mateer passing for 9.3 yards per pass attempt and can run for yardage. The Owls under Simon has thrown for 11.3 yards per pass attempt. The Owls 7-2 the over at home as an underdog. The pick here will be Oklahoma and Temple to go over 50.5. All right, next up, we're going to get you that Oregon and Northwestern game here, so that'll be the next one up here. Where Northwestern has had their issues here. It's going to be tough to contain this speed here for the Oregon Ducks. Even Oregon playing here on the grass field, it's going to be a challenge here. Let's see, get to the game here. A lot of nooners at this time slot, so just bear with us here as we get to the graphic here. Get you these first 20. Here we go. Oregon and Northwestern going off here on Saturday. We got Oregon now 2-0 with their 69-3 home victory at Oklahoma State. Ducks were up 41-3 at half. They rushed for 312 yards and got strong quarterback play. They stuffed the Cowboys passing game for 67 yards on 19 attempts. UCLA transfer Dante Moore, 16-21 passing for 266 yards and 3 touchdowns. Northwestern now 1-1 with a 42-7 home victory at FCS Western Illinois. They opened with a 23-3 road defeat at Tulane. The Wildcats had no answer to the Mean Green's ground game as they gave up 269 yards rushing on 42 attempts. Northwestern's rushing attack sputtered and got really poor quarterback play. Preston Stone, 19 of 36 passing for 161 yards and 4 interceptions. The SMU transfer really battled with accuracy issues the past few seasons with the Mustangs. Northwestern will struggle with the speed of the Ducks. The Wildcats are allowing 5.4 yards per rush. Oregon 7-2 the spread as a road favorite. Pick here will be on Oregon minus the 27.5. All right, next up we'll have Buffalo and Kent as they begin their MAC play there. Boy, Kent maybe just as bad as they've been. We'll see. They've had some really rough seasons, that Kent Golden Flashes team. Get to the game here. We'll take a little while here to get us to that graphic. Here we go. I think we're ready to roll. Buffalo and Kent State. This one for Saturday. Buffalo 1-1 after a 45-6 home victory to FCS St. Francis of Pennsylvania. They opened with a 23-10 road defeat to Minnesota. The Bulls often sputtered 1.9 yards per run. Inefficient passing as well. Buffalo struggled defending the pass, but allowed 20, but contained the run pretty well here from the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Daquan Roberson, 12 of 20 passing for 107 yards and a touchdown. He completed only half his passes last week. Kent State 1-1 after their 62-14 road defeat to Texas Tech. Golden Flashes couldn't stop the run or pass of the Red Raiders. They rushed for 1.9 yards a carry and were ineffective in the passing game. C.J. Montez, 4 of 10 passing for 49 yards. Both teams run at high volume. The Bulls have been effective in stopping the run and allowing 56% completion rate. Kent State here 8-3 to the under after allowing 37 or greater points. Buffalo 5-0 to the under after allowing 14 or fewer points. Pick here will be on Buffalo and Kent State to go under the total of 49. All right, next up we'll have Central Michigan and Michigan here. It will be our next pick from this block of games. We'll see how Michigan can do coming back from that loss to Oklahoma. Obviously, it was a tough spot for a rookie quarterback to go into. Let's see how we get this one here, but although see what Central Michigan will bring to the table in this one. As we see a lot of these MAC teams in action against some of the bigger conferences again this week. So we'll get to this game here right now. Central Michigan and Michigan, this one for Saturday. Central Michigan 1-1 after a 45-17 road defeat to Pittsburgh. Chippewas rushed for 1 yard to carry on 40 tries. The pass game was ineffective. Chippewas struggled defending the pass in defense. Joe Labus, 11 of 14 passing for 89 yards and a touchdown. Labus was inaccurate last year with the team. Michigan fell to 1-1 with a 24-13 road defeat to Oklahoma. Wolverines run well, but threw poorly with freshman quarterback here. The pass defense struggled by allowing 270 yards passing on 34 attempts. Bryce Underwood, 9 of 24 passing, 142 yards. Central Michigan's weakness is in pass defense, and the Wolverines, well, they've been inefficient throwing the football. Chippewas have defended the run well. Michigan 0-7 of the spread in their home non-conference play. Pick here will be Central Michigan here, plus 28. All right, next up, we're going to get you guys this one, Clemson and Georgia Tech game. We've seen some line movement in this one, and we'll see what comes about it here. And one of the highlights here in that noon Eastern time slot. We'll get to the game here in just a second. We might have to go the other way. Yeah, we do. So this one's going to be a noon start. Clemson will be on the road here. It's based in Georgia Tech. This is ACC action here. Clemson slow out of the gates in that game against Troy, falling behind 16-0, but were able to shut out Troy the rest of the way to capture that win last week. And now they got the bigger test here with the experienced quarterback with Haynes, although he had been banged up, but the word is that he's pointing to play in this game. Haynes King, here we go. Clemson and Georgia Tech, this one here for Saturday. Clemson 1-1 after a 27-16 home victory to Detroit. The Tigers must overcame that 16-0 deficit midway through the second quarter. Their run game averaged just 3.9 yards a carry, and they were hurt by turnovers. On defense, they contained the Trojans' passing game and held to under 3 yards per rush. Kate Klubnik, 18 of 24 passing for 196 yards and 2 touchdowns and a pick. Georgia Tech 2-0 with their 59-12 home victory at FCS Gardner-Webb. They opened with a 27-20 road win at Colorado. The Yellow Jackets ran all over the bus for 320 yards on 47 carries. They limited the passing efforts of Colorado and allowed 146 yards rushing on 31 carries. Haynes King, 13 of 20 passing for 143 yards. He rushed for 156 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was banged up and missed last week, but is on track to play here against Clemson. So Clemson offense is sputtering with this season, 3 yards per rush and just under 60% completions. They allowed 69% completion rate. The Yellow Jackets offense has been efficient, 7.2 yards per rush, 12 yards per pass attempt. Defense has been played well here. Georgia Tech has an experienced quarterback. Clemson, 2-6 of the spread on the road on grass fields. The Yellow Jackets have covered 3-0 as a home underdog. Pick here will be on Georgia Tech plus the 3.5. All right, next up, we're going to get you that Wisconsin and Alabama game. Big line in that one here, as Wisconsin is on the road in this spot. Should be a tough spot for them, but we'll see what Alabama can do here. Wisconsin and Alabama going off on Saturday. We've got Wisconsin 2-0 after their 42-10 home victory against Middle Tennessee State. The Badgers found balance in their offense. They rushed for 5 yards a carry. They limited the Blue Raiders' ground game and contained their passing attack. Billy Edwards missed the game with a lower body injury. Danny O'Neal, 23 of 27 passing for 283 yards with 3 touchdowns and a pick. Alabama 1-1 with their 73-0 home victory at UL Monroe. A bounce back from a road loss by 14 at Florida State. Crimson Tide rushed for over 212 yards and got effective quarterback play. On defense, they held the Warhawks to 148 yards. Ty Simpson here, 17 of 17 passing for 226 yards and 3 touchdowns. Simpson was not efficient in the loss to Florida State, though. 53% completion rate, 5.9 yards per pass attempt. Wisconsin defense has held weak opponents to 1.3 yards a carry, 5.8 yards per pass attempt, and could prove their quality here against top competition. Crimson Tide defense is allowing 4 yards per run, and the Badgers have resorted back to that power run game. They are 5-1 of the spread on the road following a win. Alabama 0-2 to the spread at home following a home win by 28 or greater points. Pick here will be on Wisconsin at plus the 21. All right, now we go to the 12:45 hour. We'll have South Alabama and Auburn here. As we move past the nooner starts here, we get to the 12:45 game. Here we go. South Alabama and Auburn going off here on Saturday. South Alabama 1-1 after a 33-31 home defeat to Tulane. Jaguars had a really good balanced attack against Green Wave defense. They rushed for 190 yards, but turnovers were their undoing with 4 of them. On defense, they contained the Green Wave's passing game, but allowed 241 yards rushing. Bishop Davenport, 17 of 24 passing for 231 yards and 2 touchdowns. He rushed for 63 yards and a score. Auburn 2-0 with a 42-3 home victory against Ball State. The Tigers' offense was effective with the run and pass. They rushed for 224 yards on 34 carries and got efficient work at quarterback. Auburn smothered Cardinals' offense for only 74 yards. Jackson Arnold, 24 of 28 passing for 251 yards and 3 touchdowns. South Alabama is poor against the run, allowing 211 yards per game and 5 yards per rush. The strength of the Tigers' offense has been a ground attack that rushes for 267 yards and 6.4 yards per rush. On defense, they're holding opponents to 1.1 yards per run and 4.6 yards per pass. Jaguars are 4-8 to the spread in their past 12 on the road. The Tigers 5-3 to the spread in consecutive home games. Pick here will be on Auburn minus 25. All right, we move next to UConn and Delaware. We'll have that one picked for you here in just a second. At the 1 Eastern time slot here. UConn gave Syracuse a scare there last week going into overtime. Delaware, some impressive numbers on the stat sheet, but not on the scoreboard in their loss to Colorado. That's really what got my attention in that one. I don't know if Colorado, I know they're switching quarterbacks again, and that quarterback they're bringing in was not impressive last year, called into a reserve role. So I'm going to keep an eye on that one there. We're going to get to the game here in just a second. 3 p.m. Eastern time is the start, so we got to move this. I'm moving too slow on this graphic. All right, let's get to 3 o'clock Eastern. I thought we were at the 1 Eastern time. We're 3 o'clock Eastern time. All right, let's get to these games here, and we'll get it to you here in just a second. And we have the UConn and Delaware game for you here. Here we go. UConn and Delaware going off here on Saturday. UConn fell to 1-1 with a 27-20 road overtime defeat at Syracuse. Huskies rushed for over 4 yards a carry and were inefficient with the pass. They smothered Orange running game by allowing 417 yards passing. Joe Fagnano, 24-43 passing for 259 yards. Delaware is 1-1 with a 31-7 road defeat at Colorado. The Blue Hens rushed for under 3 yards a carry but moved the ball through the air effectively. Their defense contained the run but not the pass. Nick Minucci, 18 of 36 passing for 312 yards and a pick. Back-to-back road games for UConn. They've been exploiting teams through the air this season. 8.1 yards per pass attempt. Must be impressed by the Blue Hens' ability to pass for over 300 yards at Colorado. UConn 4-2 the over on the road in consecutive road games. Pick here will be on UConn and Delaware over 52. All right, we're now going to the 3:30 Eastern time, and we'll kick it off here with the Georgia and Tennessee game. This will be one of those high-profile ones for you guys on Saturday. Georgia and Tennessee going off on Saturday. Georgia 2-0 after a 28-6 home victory against FCS Austin Peay. They opened with a 45-7 home win against a depleted Marshall team. The run game generated 239 yards and productive in the pass. They limited the Thundering Herd to 207 yards. Gunnar Stockton, 14-24 passing for 190 yards and 2 touchdowns. He rushed for 73 yards and 2 scores. Tennessee 2-0 after a 72-17 home victory to FCS East Tennessee State. They opened with a 45-26 home victory to Syracuse. Tennessee posted rushing yards of 246 yards and had efficient numbers in the passing game. On defense, the Vols contained the Orange ground attack but allowed 274 yards passing on 40 attempts. Joey Aguilar, 16-28 passing for 247 yards and 3 touchdowns. Aguilar was an App State transfer. He was not very accurate there, just over 55% of his completed passes there. He faces a strong test against his Bulldogs defense. Stockton, a redshirt senior who's been in the Georgia program for now 3 seasons. The Volunteers are 3-5 the spread at home in their past 8 against the SEC. Georgia has won 8 straight against Tennessee and covered 7 of those games. The Bulldogs were able to gain over 400 yards in 2 straight and 6 of their past 7 meetings. Pick here will be Georgia, minus 3.5. All right, next up, we're going to get you this one between Pittsburgh and West Virginia. Should be a very interesting one indeed. Pittsburgh and West Virginia sticking to that 3:30 Eastern spot. Pittsburgh and West Virginia, this one for Saturday. Pittsburgh 2-0 after a 45-17 home victory against Central Michigan. Panthers rushed for nearly 5 yards a carry and were effective with their passing game. They limited the Chippewas at 217 yards with 40 rushing yards on 41 carries. Eli Holstein, 21-28 passing for 304 yards with 4 touchdowns and a pick. West Virginia 1-1 with their 17-10 road defeat to Ohio. Mountaineers ground attack rushed for under 3 yards a carry against a MAC team. Passing game was inefficient. They allowed 182 rushing yards with 247 yards passing. Nico Markall, 15-26 passing, 178 yards and a pick. Pittsburgh's played a weak schedule with Central Michigan and Duquesne at home. The Panthers had lost 6 straight to close out last season. WVU is holding opponents to 2.8 yards per run, 6 yards per pass attempt, and 55% completion rate. Pittsburgh 2-10 the spread on the road. The Mountaineers 3-1 the spread at home on a road loss. Pick here will be West Virginia plus the 7. Okay, next up we'll have Washington State and North Texas will be our next one here at the 3:30 Eastern window. And we'll see, we'll get to here in just a second. Washington State coming off that win against San Diego. I was very surprised. That was a premium for me last week, was at Washington State. I didn't think San Diego State was that good. I could not understand that short line to go. Washington State and North Texas going off on Saturday. All right, we've got Washington State 2-0, a 36-13 home victory to San Diego State. The Cougars rushed for nearly 4 yards a carry and got accurate passing. Defense smothered the Aztecs' run game and pass game as well. Jackson Potter, 28 of 42 passing for 257 yards and 3 touchdowns. North Texas now 2-0, a 33-30 road overtime win at Western Michigan. Mean Green were effective on the ground, 182 yards rushing, 6 yards a carry. They stuffed the Broncos' passing attack and allowed 216 yards rushing on 57 carries. Drew Mestemaker, 18 of 33 passing for 224 yards and 2 touchdowns. This Washington State team has defended well, holding teams to 3.6 yards per rush and just 5.5 yards per pass attempt. The Mean Green pass attack has not been efficient here. 54% completions, 6.8 yards per pass attempt. Pick here will be Washington State plus 6. Okay, we got Oregon and Texas Tech coming up next in this one. All right, we got Oregon State and Texas Tech for Saturday. Oregon State fell to 0-2 after a 36-27 home defeat to Fresno State. They rushed for 4 yards a carry. The Beavers put up chunky of yards in the passing game, but struggled with turnovers. They allowed 7 yards per rush to the Bulldogs. Malik Murphy, 31 of 48, passing for 371 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also had 2 picks in the game. Texas Tech 2-0, a 62-14 home victory against Kent State. Red Raiders just dominated a bottom feeder here for the MAC. 501 yards, 230 rushing. They stymied the run and pass attack for the Golden Flashes. Baron Morton, 18 of 26 passing for 258 yards and 3 touchdowns. Texas Tech blew out Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and Kent State, pretty weak opponents. Murphy showed improvement last week. Texas Tech was weak against the pass last year. The Beavers are passing for 318 yards, 65% completions, 7.7 yards per pass attempt. We'll take care of Oregon State plus the 23.5. All right, we'll stick at 3:30 Eastern time and go on to the USC and Purdue game. USC, a team that's had their struggles traveling, and boy, they have not been a very good road favorite of late. We'll see how it goes here against a Purdue team. Looks to be on the rebuild. We'll see how it goes. Already in week, playing their 3rd game, I believe, here. So we'll get to the USC Purdue. USC and Purdue for Saturday. USC 2-0 after a 59-20 home victory to Georgia Southern. Trojans posted 755 yards against that weak opponent. They held the Eagles at 5.2 yards per pass attempt. Jaden Maiva here, 16-24 passing for 412 yards and 4 touchdowns. Purdue 2-0, a 34-17 home victory to FCS Southern Illinois. They opened with a 31-0 home victory to Ball State. Purdue rushed for only 3 yards a carry in that game, but were efficient in their passing game. They held the Cardinals to 87 yards passing and limited their ground attack. Ryan Brown in the game, 18-26 passing for 311 yards and 2 touchdowns. USC's played a very weak schedule based on their standards. Purdue's also played a weak schedule, but they've held opponents to 3.2 yards per rush, 5.8 yards per pass attempt. Their passing game has been efficient, but USC 1-7 of the spread is a road favorite. Trojans must prove they can cover on the road and play effectively. Pick here will be Purdue plus 21. All right, next up, we're going to have that SMU team. Boy, they had a wild one there against Baylor last week. Here we go. SMU and Missouri State, Saturday's action. SMU 1-1 with a 48-45 home victory to Baylor in overtime. SMU rushed for only 3.7 yards a carry, but were efficient with the pass. The pass defense really poor here, giving up 440 yards passing on 50 attempts. Kevin Jennings, 16-22 passing for 295 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Missouri State 1-1 after their 21-20 road win at Marshall. Their running game struggled, but were efficient in the pass. They allowed 5.8 yards per rush and smothered the Thundering Herds passing game. Jacob Clark here, 21-31 passing for 359 yards with 3 touchdowns and a pick. Missouri State, an FCS team last year, has been really poor defensively, giving up 6.7 yards per rush, nearly 9 yards per pass attempt. SMU's offense in the passing game, very efficient, 73% completions, 10.7 yards per pass attempt. SMU, a playoff team from a year ago, come off a loss against a weak opponent here that was blown out by USC by 60. We'll take SMU here late, the 28.5 points. All right, next up we'll go to 4 o'clock Eastern time with that Louisiana and Missouri game. Louisiana and Missouri going off on Saturday. Louisiana 1-1 after their 34-10 home victory to FCS McNeese State. Well, they opened the year with a 14-12 home defeat to Rice. Boy, the Raging Cajuns had a tough time with that triple option here for the Owls as they changed their offense. But the Raging Cajuns got crushed on the ground for 5 yards a carry, and they had really terrible passing performance. They allowed 206 yards rushing the Owls only on 55 carries. Rice attempted only 9 passes in the game. Daniel Beal 0-6 passing for no yards in defeats. Missouri 2-0, a 42-31 home victory to Kansas. The Tigers gained 261 yards rushing and were efficient in the pass. They held the Jayhawks to 3 yards per rush and 7.4 yards per pass attempt. Will Burbula 30-39 passing for 334 yards and 3 touchdowns. Raging Cajuns are getting really poor quarterback play and allowing 68% completions to opponents. Missouri is crushing teams on the ground here. 5.6 yards a carry, completing 80% of their passes for 9.6 yards per pass attempt. They are 7-5 to the spread as a home favorite. Pick here will be Missouri minus 27. All right, next up we'll get you Iowa State and Arkansas State. Will be our next one. Iowa State making a road trip here. Iowa State and Arkansas State for Saturday. Iowa State improved to 3-0 after a 16-13 home victory to Iowa. The Cyclones were limited on the ground to 3.5 yards a carry and inefficient in the passing game. They held the Hawkeyes to 83 yards passing, 3.4 yards per run. Rocco Beck here, 18-27 passing for 134 yards with a touchdown. Arkansas State fell to 1-1, a 56-14 road defeat to Arkansas. Red Wolves struggled with their passing game and rushed for only 3.6 yards a carry. Defensively, they were torched for 630 yards. Jalen Rayner, 21-33 passing for 125 yards with a touchdown and 2 picks. Iowa State has defended well, holding teams to 3.7 yards per run, 5.8 yards per pass attempt. Quarterback play was poor in their defeat to a major conference school. Arkansas State 4-0 to the under at home, following a loss by 17 or greater points. Pick here Iowa State and Arkansas State under 55.5. All right, we go to the 4:15 Eastern time where we got UTEP taking on Texas. UTEP and Texas for Saturday. UTEP 1-1 with their 42-17 home victory at FCS Tennessee Martin. They opened up with a 28-16 road defeat to Utah State here. Miners' ground game was limited to under 3 yards a carry there and were inefficient in the passing game. They allowed nearly 4 yards per rush to the Aggies with 233 yards passing on 28 attempts. Malachi Nelson, 22-34 passing for 178 yards with a touchdown and pick. Texas here 1-1, a 38-7 home victory at San Jose State. The Longhorns rushed for nearly 5 yards a carry and were solid in their passing game. They stymied the Spartans' ground attack and allowed only 108 yards passing on 43 attempts. Arch Manning, 19-30 passing for 295 yards with 4 touchdowns and a pick. The accuracy has been an issue for Manning this year, just 60% completion rate. The Miners have been solid against the run. The Longhorns here could not cover at home against San Jose State. Texas 1-3 to the spread as a home favorite of 35.5 to 42 points. Pick here will be UTEP plus 41.5. All right, we move here to the 7:30 hour with the next one. USF and Miami, this one for Saturday. USF improved to 2-0 with an 18-16 road win at Florida. The Bulls were able to rush here for over 4 yards a carry and generated 263 yards passing. The Bulls held the Gators to just over 3 yards a carry and limited them to 6.7 yards per pass attempt. Byron Brown, 23-36 passing for 263 yards and a touchdown, plus rush for 66 yards. Miami comes off a 45-3 home victory to FCS Bethune-Cookman. They defeated Notre Dame 27-24 at home in their opener. Miami rushed for under 4 yards a carry, had modest gains in the passing game. They controlled the Fighting Irish ground attack to only 3.3 yards per rush. Carson Beck, 20-31 passing for 205 yards and 2 touchdowns. You know, Brown was effective for USF in 2023 when he was healthy. Yesterday he was dealing with a lot. Last year he was dealing with tons of injuries. The USF defense holding teams at 3.7 yards a run, 5.9 yards per pass attempt. Hurricanes allowing 69% completions to opponents. The Bulls are an experienced team. The Bulls 6-2 the spread here on the road to the non-conference. Pick here will be on USF plus 18. Move to the 5 o'clock time here to get you that Liberty and Bowling Green game. Liberty and Bowling Green going off here on Saturday. Liberty fell to 1-1 after a 34-24 road defeat to Jacksonville State. They posted pretty good offensive numbers behind 5.5 yards per rush and solid passing totals, but they gave up 338 yards rushing on 50 attempts of the Gamecocks that threw only 12 passes. Ethan Vasco, 19-29 passing, 335 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Bowling Green 1-1 after their 34-20 road defeat at Cincinnati. Falcons struggled to run the ball, and they were held by a catch just over 3 yards per rush at only 333 yards passing on 24 attempts. Drew Pine here, 29-36 passing for 274 yards and a touchdown. Bowling Green does not possess the style of running that could exploit this Flames, like the Flames got exploited last week. Bowling Green allowing 8.7 yards per pass attempt. Liberty has put up great offensive numbers and defends the pass very well, coming up 4.3 yards per pass attempt. Flames 3-1 to the spread as a road favorite of 3.5 to 10 points. We'll take Liberty minus the 6.5. 2 after a 42-10 road defeat to Wisconsin. Blue Raiders' run game was squashed and were inefficient in the passing game. They allowed 5 yards per rush to the Badgers with 283 yards passing on 27 attempts. Nicholas Vitadio hit 20 of 31 passes for 197 yards with a touchdown and a pick. Nevada now 1-1 after a 20-17 home victory to FCS Cal State Sacramento. They opened the year with a 46-11 road defeat at Penn State. The Wolfpack rushing game was held under 3 yards a carry. Couldn't really move effectively through the air. They allowed 3.8 yards a carry to the Nittany Lions with 303 yards passing on 35 attempts. Chevy Purdy, 7 of 15 passing for 97 yards and a pick. He rushed for 55 yards. Nevada had trouble getting past an FCS opponent last week. The Wolfpack is getting inaccurate quarterback play and have been poor in pass defense. Vitadio is an experienced quarterback with the program. Nevada 5-8 to the spread at home. Pick here Middle Tennessee State plus the 9. FAU and FIU college football pick for Saturday. FAU 1-1 after a 56-14 home victory to FCS Florida A&M. They fell at Maryland 39-7 in the opener. The Owls' run game was thwarted here, just 2.5 yards a carry and very inefficient passing numbers. They limited the Terrapins to under 4 yards a carry and just 5.7 yards per pass attempt. Caden Valkamp 30 of 49 passing for 228 yards with a touchdown and 4 picks. FIU 1-1 with a 42-9 road defeat to Penn State. Golden Panthers rushed for 3.5 yards a carry and inefficient in the passing game. They gave up 209 yards rushing to the Lions for 6.7 yards a carry, but contained them through the air. Keon Jenkins 15 of 28 passing for 127 yards and a pick. FIU run defense is the concern in this matchup. The Owls were effective in limiting Maryland's ground attack, and the pass defense doesn't look bad. FAU won and covered 7 of their past 8 against FIU. Pick here will be FAU plus the 2.5. All right, we're going to go to the 7 o'clock hour here. We'll go with App State and Southern Miss. We move over to the 7 p.m. Eastern time frame here. A lot of games here at 6 Eastern, but we got to get to that 7 Eastern frame. Here we go. It'll be App State and Southern Miss here with our next video once we get to the graphic, obviously. Let's see here. A lot of games at the 7 Eastern hour, but we're looking for App State and Southern Miss. Let's get to it here in just a second. Sorry for the delay here, guys, but we'll get to it. Here, App State, Southern Miss. Here we go. Appalachian State and Southern Miss college football pick. This one here for Saturday. App State 2-0 after a 20-13 home victory at FCS Lindenwood. They opened the season with a 34-11 road win at Charlotte. The Mountaineers rushed for 4.8 yards a carry and had a monster performance in the passing game. They limited the 49ers on the ground and pass. A.J. Swan, 31-46, passing for 368 yards and 3 touchdowns. Swan is a Vanderbilt transfer who played 15 games there. Southern Miss 1-1 after a 38-20 home victory to Jackson State, an FCS school. Golden Eagles opened with a 34-17 home defeat to Mississippi State. Southern Miss rushed for nearly 3 yards a carry and inefficient in the pass game. They allowed 4.5 yards per rush to the Golden Eagles, along with 277 yards passing on 37 attempts. Braylon Braxton, 26-39 passing for 199 yards with 2 touchdowns and a pick. Southern Miss is full of transfers from Marshall and their former head coach as well, coming from Marshall. App State has played an easy schedule. Golden Eagles' pass defense holding teams to just 6.3 yards per pass step. App State has inexperienced offense. App State 3-6 the spread on the road against the conference. Will take care of Southern Miss plus 1.5. Our next one we're going to have is Ohio and Ohio State. So that'll be our next game here. So Ohio team has been pretty impressive the way they played. Pulled up an upset last week here against West Virginia. Kind of ruined that West Virginia Pitt game. I think game day was going to be there, but once West Virginia lost, they made other plans. All right, so here we go. Ohio and Ohio State. This one for Saturday. Ohio is 1-1 after their 17-10 home victory to West Virginia. The Bobcats rushed for nearly 4 yards a carry and were efficient in the passing game. They defended their Mountaineers well by holding them at 2.6 yards a carry and limited their passing totals. Parker Navarro hit 22 of 31 passes for 247 yards with a touchdown but 3 interceptions. He rushed for 87 yards. Ohio State is 2-0 with their 70-0 home victory against Grambling. They opened with a 14-7 home victory against Texas. Ohio State gained only 203 yards with just over 2 yards a carry. They gave up 4.5 yards a carry to the Longhorns on the ground and limited their production in the passing game with 5.6 yards per pass attempt. Julian Sand, 13-20 passing for 126 yards and a touchdown. Ohio has faced Rutgers and West Virginia so far. The Bobcats have rushed for 4.8 yards a carry and get accurate quarterback play. Backing out the FCS numbers, there was not much offense from the Buckeyes in their win against the Longhorns. Bobcats 5-2 the spread as a road dog. Pick here Ohio plus 31. All right, next up we'll have ODU and Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech right now desperate for a win. It's been a slow start for them this year. But so we'll get to ODU and Virginia Tech will be our next one. There we go. Old Dominion and Virginia Tech for Saturday. Old Dominion 1-1 after a 54-6 home victory to FCS North Carolina Central. They opened with a 27-14 road defeat to Indiana. The Monarchs had success running the football with 218 yards on 23 carries. They passed poorly, though, in the game. Defensively, the Monarchs were crushed on the ground, allowing 309 yards on 57 carries. Colton Joseph, 11-22 passing for 96 yards, 3 touchdowns. Virginia Tech 0-2 after their 44-20 home defeat to Vanderbilt. Hokies were outscored 34-0 in the second half. They rushed for 3.5 yards a carry and were inefficient in the passing game. They got clobbered defensively, allowing 7.1 yards per rush with 11.5 yards per pass attempt. Kyron Drones, 17-29 passing for 134 yards and a touchdown. Virginia Tech has faced 2 SEC teams to start the season. ODU run defense is a concern as they are allowing 4.7 yards a carry. Drones is an experienced season now and in his third season as a starter. Virginia Tech 6-4 to the spread as a home favorite. They pounded the Monarchs the past 2 seasons by 20 and 19 points. Pick here Virginia Tech -7. All right, next up we got Western Michigan and Illinois. Illinois coming off an impressive win there on that against Duke. They got the job done there. So Western Michigan and Illinois will be our next one. When we get to that graphic here, just 1 second here. A lot of games at that 7 Eastern spot, so we should get to it here. Went too far. So went the other way. Okay, here we go. Sorry for this delay. We'll get to this next one here in just a second. All right, not too far away from it, I believe. Western Michigan and Illinois. The other way. All right. Here we go. Just found it. Here we go. West Virginia and Illinois. This one here for Saturday. We've got Western Michigan dropping 0-2 with a 33-30 home defeat to North Texas in overtime. Broncos kept it on the ground for most of the game, 216 yards rushing on 57 carries. The passing game was inefficient. Defensively, they allowed 182 yards rushing to the mean green with 6 yards per pass attempt. Brady Jones, 2 of 4 passing for 12 yards. Illinois now 2-0 after a 45-19 road win at Duke. Final Illini rushed for only 3 yards per carry and were productive throwing the football. They limited Duke to just 4 yards per rush, but allowed 356 yards passing on 39 attempts. Luke Altmaier, 22-31 passing for 296 yards and 3 touchdowns. Western Michigan is rushing for only 3 yards a carry and 5.9 yards per pass attempt. They are getting poor quarterback play as they are not completing just about half of their passes. Illinois has stuffed the run this year, allowing 2.2 yards a carry, with the Broncos throwing nearly 5 yards per rush. Western Michigan 5-7 to the spread as road dog. Final Illini 5-3 to the spread in their past 8 at home. Pick Illinois minus 27.5. All right, next up we're going to have Jacksonville State and Georgia Southern in this block. That will be the next one, so just hang on with us here, guys, as we get through these 15 games here on this block. And then we did 20 early in the week, so we'll have 35 games for you here for the Saturday card. Of course, we have the Thursday game up for you as well, and some Thursday NFL up there for you. So next up will be the Jacksonville State game. Jacksonville State, pretty impressive, just like they haven't missed a whole lot since Rich Rod left. They're still running the ball down people's throat. Here we go. Jacksonville State and Georgia Southern, this one for Saturday. Jacksonville State is 1-1 after a 34-24 home victory against Liberty. Gamecocks ran all over the Flames, 338 yards on 50 carries. They attempted just 12 passes. Why, when you're running this well? Offensively, they coughed up, though, 315 yards passing on 29 attempts with 5.5 yards of carry on the ground. Gavin Wismat, 6-12 passing for 52 yards. He rushed for 78 yards and a touchdown. Georgia Southern here is 0-2 with a 59-20 road defeat at USC. Eagles' defense was torched for 755 yards with 309 yards rushing on 33 carries. On offense, they rushed for 4.3 yards a carry. J.C. French here, 19-35 passing for 179 yards with 2 touchdowns and a pick. Georgia Southern could not stop the running games of USC and Fresno State. They're giving up 333 yards rushing per game, 8.6 yards per pass attempt. The strength of Jacksonville State has been their ground attack as they're averaging 254 yards rushing per game, 5.8 yards per run. The Gamecocks are 5-3 the spread as a road underdog here, so we're going to go ahead and take Jacksonville State here at plus 3.5. All right, next up we have Arkansas and Ole Miss here at that 7 o'clock Eastern game. Should be an interesting game here. Of course, hot seat for that Arkansas head coach. Ole Miss, well, really had the talent to make it to the playoffs, but they had that bad loss to Kentucky last year. We'll see how they do. They're off to a good start this year, their first year starting quarterback. We'll see how they fare here in this one here against Arkansas, but Ole Miss will be the home team here. There we go. Arkansas and Ole Miss college football pick for Saturday. Arkansas now 2-0 after their 56-14 home victory at Arkansas State, a dominating performance by the Razorbacks. They rushed and threw for over 300 yards. Arkansas limited the Red Wolves to 3.6 yards per pass attempt. Taylor Green here, 17-26 passes for 239 yards with 4 touchdowns and 2 picks. He rushed for 151 yards and a touchdown. Ole Miss 2-0 after a 30-23 road win at Kentucky. Rebels had a good offensive balanced attack in the game. They rushed for 220 yards for 5.2 yards a carry. Ole Miss surrendered 172 yards rushing for 4.6 yards a carry, but only 5.6 yards per pass attempt. Austin Simmons here, 13-24 passing for 235 yards and 2 picks. He rushed for 44 yards and a score. Arkansas has played a weak schedule. Ole Miss was tested on the road and came away with that 7-point win. The Rebels' pass defense and balance on offense, along with their home field, the key in this one. They are 6-0 to the spread in their past 6 September home games. Pick here will be Ole Miss, -7. All right, we get out of this 7 Eastern slot, go to the 7:30 Eastern slot for Eastern Michigan and Kentucky up next. Eastern Michigan, oh my goodness, they're having a rough one this year. They're usually on one of those fringe bowl teams from the MAC, but maybe they'll get together. They're in MAC play. We'll see how it goes for them. But here we go. Eastern Michigan and Kentucky for Saturday. Eastern Michigan fell to 0-2 after a 28-23 home defeat to FCS team LIU. My goodness. They opened up with a 52-27 road defeat at Texas State. They rushed for 4.3 yards a carry and were efficient in the passing game. They were crushed, though, on defense, allowing 392 yards rushing on 39 carries and 7.9 yards per pass attempt. Noah Kim here, 23 of 34 passing for 248 yards with a touchdown. Kentucky 1-1 after a 30-23 home defeat to Ole Miss. Wildcats rushed for 172 yards and 4.6 yards a carry. The passing attack was stymied in the game. On defense, they allowed over 9 yards per pass attempt and 220 yards rushing on 48 carries. Cutter Boley, 1 of 3 passing for 38 yards. He will start for an injured Zach Calzada, who has a shoulder injury. Eastern Michigan is getting crushed on the ground by allowing 311 yards per game, rushing 7.4 yards per rush attempt. Kentucky's strength is their run game, which generates 4.9 yards a carry. Eastern Michigan 2-4 the spread on the road in the non-conference. Kentucky 3-0 to the spread at home when favored by 21.5 to 28 points. The pick here will be Kentucky minus 24. All right, next up we're going to have Florida and LSU here at this time window. Florida and LSU, this one for Saturday. Florida fell to 1-1 after an 18-16 home defeat to USF. The Gators often sputtered as they rushed for 3.2 yards a carry and were inefficient in the passing game. On defense, they allowed 4.4 yards per carry to the Bulls and allowed 263 yards passing. DJ Lagway, 23 of 33 passing for 222 yards with a touchdown to pick. LSU now 2-0 after a 23-7 home victory to Louisiana Tech. It was a poor passing game for the Tigers, and they rushed for 3.8 yards a carry. Garrett Nussmeier, 26 of 41 passing for 237 yards with a touchdown to pick. LSU offense has sputtered to start the season. They are running for 3.6 yards a carry with 6 yards per pass attempt. The Gators have been getting accurate quarterback play and have defended the run well. Florida 2-0 as a road underdog of plus 7.5 to plus 14 points. Pick here will be Florida plus 7.5. Texas A&M and Notre Dame for Saturday. Texas A&M is 2-0 with their 44-22 home victory to Utah State. Offense was clicking with effective passing and rushing for 235 yards on 45 carries. They limited the Aggies' ground attack to 2.3 yards a carry, 5.5 yards per pass attempt. Marcel Reed, 19-28 passing for 220 yards and 3 touchdowns. He rushed for 66 yards and a touchdown. Notre Dame 0-1 after a 27-24 road defeat at Miami. Notre Dame's running game sputtered, just 93 yards on 28 carries. They limited the Hurricanes to 3.1 yards per rush, 6.6 yards per pass attempt. C.J. Carr, 19 of 30 passing for 221 yards and 2 touchdowns and a pick. He had a rushing touchdown. Texas A&M here getting efficient offensive performance here. Notre Dame's 3.3 yards per rush average a concern, as this was the team's strength the past few seasons. Notre Dame 1-3 of the spread in their past 4 home September games. We'll take Texas A&M here at minus. Texas A&M here at plus, the plus, not the minus. That's typo, plus the 6.5. East Carolina and Coastal Carolina, this one for Saturday. East Carolina 1-1 after a 56-3 home victory to FCS Campbell. They opened with a 24-17 road defeat at NC State. The Pirates rushed for only 1 yard a carry, but were efficient in the passing game. They contained the Wolfpack's running attack by allowing 318 yards passing on 34 attempts. Kane Hauser, 25 of 35 passing for 314 yards with 2 touchdowns. Coastal Carolina moves to 1-1, a 13-0 home victory to FCS Charleston Southern. They opened with a 48-7 road defeat in Virginia. Chanticleers rushed for 3 yards a carry and were poor in the passing game. They allowed nearly 6 yards per carry, 8.1 yards per pass attempt. MJ Morris, 20 of 36 passing for 163 yards and a pick. Chanticleer's offense has performed poorly with inaccurate passing and 4.7 yards per pass attempt. East Carolina getting really good work from their passing game and holding opponents at 1.9 yards per run, 6.6 yards per pass attempt. ECU 4-2 of the spread on the road in the non-conference. Coastal Carolina 1-3 of the spread at home when an underdog of plus 3.5 to plus 10 points. Pick here will be East Carolina minus 7.5. All right, next up, we're going to get you that New Mexico State Louisiana Tech game here. New Mexico State and Louisiana Tech college football pick. This one for Saturday. All right, we got New Mexico State 2-0 after a 21-14 home victory against Tulsa. The Aggies rushed for just over 1 yard a carry and were inefficient in the passing game. They held Tulsa to 3.8 yards a carry, 5.9 yards per pass attempt. Logan 5, 27-44 passing for 248 yards, 2 touchdowns. Louisiana Tech 1-1 after their 23-7 road defeat at LSU. Bulldogs' run and passing games were stymied. Defensively, they allowed 3.7 yards per rush to the Tigers with 5.8 yards per pass attempt. Trey Kubik completed 12 of 18 passes for 50 yards. Both teams are carried by their defense as each run poorly and get poor quarterback play. Louisiana Tech 3-5 the spread at home against the conference. 5-6 the spread as home favorite. They don't draw a lot of fans. That's one of the worst attendance numbers there is Louisiana Tech compared to the capacity. Aggies have covered both recent meetings. Pick here New Mexico State plus the 10. All right, next we're going to get you that UMass game here. UMass and Iowa will be our next game. Massachusetts and Iowa college football pick Saturday. UMass is 0-2 after a 27-26 home defeat to FCS Bryant. They opened the year with a 42-20 home defeat to Temple. Minutemen struggled in the passing game and rushed for 4.7 yards a carry. Defensively, they allowed 5.2 yards per rush, 9.5 yards per pass attempt. Brandon Rose, 23-38 passing for 193 yards and a pick. Iowa fell to 1-1 after a 16-13 road defeat at Iowa State. Hawkeyes rushed for 3.4 yards a carry and passed poorly. They contained both the Cyclones' passing and running game effectively. Mark Gronkowski here, 13 of 24 passing for 83 yards and an interception. He rushed for 37 yards and a touchdown. UMass offense generated poor running and passing numbers. Iowa is getting poor quarterback play, but driven by the defense. The Hawkeyes could pitch a shutout here in this game. Pick here UMass and Iowa under 43. Navy 2-0 after their 38-24 home victory at UAB. Navy ran all over the Blazers for 285 yards on 51 carries. They got good quarterback work as well. They limited the Blazers' rushing attack, but allowed 321 yards passing on 33 attempts. Blake Horvath, 12 of 15 passing for 234 yards with 2 touchdowns. He rushed for 86 yards and 2 scores. Tulsa drops to 1-1 after a 21-14 road defeat at New Mexico State. Golden Hurricane rushed for 3.9 yards a carry with inefficient work at the quarterback position. They defended the run well and held the Aggies to 5.6 yards per pass attempt. Kirk Francis questionable with what was described as a bad concussion. Backup Baylor Hayes, 13 of 16 passing for 129 yards with a touchdown to pick. He had a rushing score as well. Navy rushing for 7.1 yards a carry. They're passing for 11, almost 12 yards per pass attempt with accuracy. Tulsa's offense has performed poorly with weak quarterback play. The midshipmen 4-2 to the spread as a road favorite. Tulsa 4-9 to the spread at home. Pick here Navy minus 114. Duke and Tulane going off here on Saturday. Duke fell to 1-1 with a 45-19 home defeat to Illinois. Blue Devils' run game produced just over 3 yards a carry, but were productive in the passing game. They allowed only 3 yards per rush with 9.5 yards per pass attempt. Tulane's transfer Darian Mensah, 23 of 34 passing for 334 yards with 2 touchdowns and a pick, and they lost 2 fumbles. Tulane 2-0 after a 33-31 road win at South Alabama. The Green Wave rushing numbers were good with 241 yards, 5.4 yards per rush. On defense, they allowed 9.6 yards per pass attempt with 190 yards rushing for 4.6 yards a carry. Jake Retzloff, 13 of 24 passing for 125 yards with a touchdown. He rushed for 64 yards and a score. Tulane's ground game is rushing for 6 yards a carry. They have defended the run and pass well on the year. Duke has struggled defending the pass and with turnovers. Pick here Tulane minus 1.5. Right, next up we'll have Utah and Wyoming will be our next pick here. Utah and Wyoming for Saturday. Utah 2-0 after a 63-9 home victory to FCS Cal Poly. They opened the season with a 43-10 road win at UCLA. They ran all over the Bruins in that game for 286 yards for 5.3 yards a carry. They limited the Bruins to 3 yards per carry, 6.2 yards per pass attempt. Devin Dampier, 17 of 23 passes for 192 yards and 3 touchdowns. Wyoming 2-0 after a 31-7 home victory at FCS Northern Iowa. Cowboys opened with a 10-0 road win at Akron. The Cowboys rushed for 4.3 yards a carry and were able to throw downfield for 7.2 yards per pass attempt. They limited the Zips on the ground and only 3.7 yards per pass attempt. Caden Anderson, 19 of 36 passes for 260 yards with a touchdown and pick. The Utes have been quality offense and defense in the key data points. Wyoming has played a really weak schedule and completed only 63% of passes to quarterback against those weak foes and converted poorly on third down. Wyoming 1-4 the spread in back-to-back home games. You pick here Utah minus 23.5. Akron and UAB, this one for Saturday. Akron 0-2 after a 68-0 road defeat at Nebraska. Akron's offense was poor again, 3.1 yards a carry. The passing game struggled. On defense, the Zips allowed 7.1 yards a carry, 494 yards passing on 40 attempts. Ben Finley, 7 of 21 passing for 54 yards. UAB drops to 1-1 after a 38-24 road defeat at Navy. Blazers were limited in the ground game, but got production from their passing attack. They allowed 295 yards rushing to the midshipmen with 5.8 yards a carry and 21 yards per attempt. Wow. Jalen Kitna, 22 of 32 passing for 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks. Akron has been shut out in all 8 quarters this season. They're passing for 3.3 yards per pass attempt. The Zips allowing nearly 10 yards per pass attempt. The Blazers rushed for 5.9 to carry with 10 yards per pass attempt and 73% completion rate. Akron 5-8 to the spread as a road dog. Blazers 3-1 to the spread as a road favorite. Pick here UAB here minus 11. Air Force and Utah State going off here on Saturday. Air Force 1-0 after a 49-13 home victory at FCS Bucknell. Air Force 5-7 for head coach Troy Calhoun, his 19th season with the program. Falcons returned 13 starters with 8 on offense. Offense production really dropped in 2024. Team averaged about 19 points a game and only 314 yards there. Run defense struggled as well for the previous season. They were given 4.6 yards a carry. They went through a 7-game lose streak after their opening win against an FCS foe, but then they closed strong on a 4-game win streak. Utah State 1-1 after a 44-22 road defeat at Texas A&M. Utah State struggled on the ground and were inefficient with their passing game. They allowed 5.2 yards per rush, 319 yards passing for 9.4 yards per pass attempt. Bryson Barnes, 15 of 30 passing for 169 yards and 2 touchdowns. Josh Johnson will start at quarterback for the Falcons. The junior saw limited work last year in 5 games, but rushed for 6.7 yards a carry. The Aggies struggled on the defense last year. This year they are given 4.2 yards per rush, 7.1 yards per pass attempt. The offensive numbers are poor with 3.1 yards per run, 4.9 yards per pass attempt. The Falcons will continue that forward momentum sparked by last year's finish. Falcons 4-2 the spread as a road favorite. Pick here Air Force minus 4.5. Texas State and Arizona State for Saturday. Texas State 2-0 after a 43-36 road win at UTSA. The Bobcats offensively rushed for 3.7 yards a carry. They got great production from their passing game. They limited the Roadrunners to 5.1 yards per pass attempt, but 245 yards rushing on 34 carries. Brad Jackson, 12 of 20 passing for 286 yards with a touchdown and 2 picks. He rushed for 34 yards and 2 touchdowns. Arizona State 1-1 after a 24-20 road defeat at Mississippi State. Sun Devils ran effectively for nearly 5 yards a carry, but were grounded through the air. On defense, they limited the Bulldogs to 2.2 yards a carry, but 8.5 yards per pass attempt. Sam Levitt, 20 of 22 passing for 82 yards with a touchdown and 2 picks. ASU passing game has been a struggle here. Texas State getting great offensive play, including at the quarterback position. The Bobcats 7-4 the spread on the road. ASU 2-4 to the spread in the non-conference. Remember last year, Texas State dropped a 3-point decision at home and were able to move the football through the air on them. Pick here will be Texas State plus 16.5. Minnesota and Cal. This one for Saturday. We've got Minnesota 2-0 after a 66-0 home victory against an FCS school at Northwestern State. They opened with a 23-10 home victory against Buffalo. The Golden Gophers rushed for under 4 yards a carry and were productive throwing the football. They held the Bulls to 1.9 yards per rush, 5.4 yards per pass attempt. Drake Lindsey, 19-35 passing for 290 yards with 2 touchdowns and a pick. Cal 2-0 after a 35-3 home victory at an FCS school in Texas Southern. They opened with a 34-15 road win at Oregon State. The Golden Bears rushed for under 4 yards a carry, but they were effective with the passing game. They held the Beavers to 2.5 yards a carry, but 7.3 yards per pass attempt. Darren Cowie, Sagapole, 20-30 passing for 234 yards and 3 touchdowns. Minnesota has played a weak schedule. The Golden Bears got a good road win at Oregon State. Cal quarterback play has been very accurate here, 70% completions. They are 3-1 of the spread as home underdog. Pick here will be Cal plus 2.5. Boston College and Stanford, late night on Saturday. Boston College 1-1 after a 42-40 road overtime defeat at Michigan State. The Eagles rushed for only 2.5 yards a carry and effective in the passing game. On defense, they allowed 4.3 yards per rush with 231 yards passing for 8 yards per pass attempt. Dylan Longren hit 34-45 passes for 390 yards with 4 touchdowns. Stanford 0-2 after a 27-3 road defeat at BYU. The Cardinals rushed for under a yard per carry and were ineffective in the passing game. They allowed 3.8 yards per run to the Cougars with only 6.5 yards per pass attempt. Ben Bronson, 17-32 passing for 143 yards and 2 picks. Tough back-to-back road spot for Boston College. The Cardinals defense has played well in 4 yards a carry and just 5.7 yards per pass attempt. BC's rushing for only 2.6 yards a carry. Pick here will be Stanford plus 13.5. For more free pick videos, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Lots of free picks over our channel, delivered by myself as well as our team of cappers here at Tony'sPicks.com. Hey guys, give us a like and thumbs up on this video. Greatly appreciate it. Then visit our site, Tony'sPicks.com, for our best bets. Our premium plays are there. You see all the top performers there. Click their links, get signed up to the long-term passes as well as best bets and more. And our promo code TonyT at checkout will knock off that 15%. Links in the description to get signed up. That will do it for now. I'm Tony T. We'll talk with you guys later.